Yo, what's going on guys? Arekkz here, welcome back to another Anthem video, and today I want to talk to you about combos. Combos are an incredibly important part of Anthem's gameplay. They're something that you want to understand and learn to master because as you progress into the end game and you fight more challenging enemies and take on more challenging activities, they are for sure something you want to take full advantage of because they will help you dispatch some of those bigger, tougher enemies. So with that being said, in this video, I'm going to go over everything you need to know. So if you do enjoy this, then a like would be super appreciated. Comment down below if you have any questions. And of course, if you haven't entered our giveaway for the limited edition Super Smash Bros. Nintendo Switch, then be sure to click the link in the description box down below to enter. Now, to begin with, first up, what are combos? So, broadly speaking, combos are when you use two specific types of moves, one after another, and they then result in a combo effect, which not only dishes out large damage, but also an additional effect based on the javelin that you are using. Combos are performed when you combine a move known as a primer with a move known as a detonator. A primer is typically a move that applies some sort of elemental status to an enemy, be that fire, ice, lightning or acid, and a detonator is a move that when used on a primed enemy will result in a combo. Now it's also worth noting that not all of your abilities are primers or detonators. Some of them are just straight damage, and typically if you were to compare these side by side, then a move that is neither a primer nor a detonator would have higher single target damage output than a move that is a primer or a detonator. But of course, when you then combine them and use them to form combos, they of course yield greater benefits. So while yes, both will be useful, and yes, you can kind of set up your ability loadouts however you please, there's definitely going to be a lot more value in learning to use combos accordingly, especially if you're playing in a team. You can still combo if you're playing solo because you can both prime and detonate enemies yourself. But then if you play as a team, it also sets you up and kind of gives you other opportunities whereby you could, say, play as a Storm and say, I'm just going to prime enemies, I'll freeze things, I'll burn things. And then you can have another teammate who is like a Ranger or an Interceptor who's like, I'm just going to detonate. So there's lots of options, but either way, learning to use these is going to be incredibly important. So with that being said, how do you know what's a primer and what's a detonator? Well, when you dive into the Forge and you take a look at your abilities, if you see this little icon here, this circle icon, this indicates that your move is a primer, and if you see this little exploding star icon, this indicates that your move is a detonator. Now it is worth noting there are a couple of UI bugs right now, at least in the builds that I played, where some moves that are primers and are detonators don't actually have the icon. So for those ones, if you actually equip them and you go into the game, then when you're actually playing in the game and you see your abilities in the bottom right corner of the screen, they also have small icons down there. That's typically the way to indicate whether or not you have a primer or a detonator. I'm sure that's something they'll fix by the time the game launches and whatnot, but it is worth calling out that, for example, the Colossus, the Flamethrower, which we know is a primer, and the Lightning Coil, which we know is a detonator, they didn't show up as those, but they still functioned accordingly. Anyway, with that being said, for those of you guys that do want a kind of very quick reference point, for the Ranger, your Explosive Blaze, your Frost Grenade, your Venom Darts, and your Shock Mace, which is your melee ability, are all primers. Meanwhile, your Frag Grenade, your Seeking Missile, and your Ultimate are all detonators. For the Colossus, your Firewall Mortar, and the Flamethrower, and your Acid Spitter are all primers. Meanwhile, your Lightning Coil, your Explosive Mortar, your Heavy Cannon, your Railgun, your Melee Attack, and also your Ultimate are detonators. For the Storm, your Iron Blast, your Hoarfrost Shards, and your Ball Lightning are all primers. Meanwhile, your detonators are Lightning Strike, Flaming Orb, Glacial Beam, your Fiery Strike melee attack, and your ultimate is both a primer and a detonator, which is kind of handy. And then finally for the Interceptor, your Acid Bomb, your Cryoglaive, and your Corrosive Spray are all primers. Meanwhile, your Spark Dash, your Tempest Strike, your melee attacks, and also your ultimate are also detonators. So that's worth noting because of course if you want to have that as a reference point, then that will kind of help you plan out some of your builds. However, I also mentioned at the beginning of the video that depending on the javelin you play as, you also have an additional bonus combo effect. So if you're playing as the Ranger, then upon triggering the combo, you also deal a bonus amount of damage, a considerable amount that is, to a single target. So for example, if you trigger the combo on something like an Earbuds, then not only do you, trigger the combo effect and use your move, you also deal a large amount of bonus damage to that single target. So this is a very good single target damage option. Meanwhile for the Colossus, very similar effect, only this time it's spread amongst an area. So when you detonate, you instead do a large amount of bonus damage to a small area. So if you were to say detonate a group of enemies, then all those enemies would suffer from that large burst damage. For the Storm, you instead spread the elemental effect to nearby enemies. So for example, if you froze a single target in a group and you then detonated, that would then spread that freeze status to everyone else. And for the Interceptor, probably one of the most interesting ones. When you detonate a combo, you gain an aura based on that element. So say for example, if you use your Venom Bomb to prime enemies with acid, and you then detonate it with your blades, you would then gain an acid aura. You'll hear this, you'll see a UI prompt on the screen, and all while you have this, just simply by standing next to enemies, you are applying that status to them, albeit slightly slower, but you're still applying it. So the idea with the Interceptor is that you prime the enemies, you detonate them, and then you just get into the thick of battle, start meleeing them, and in the process, you're also applying stacks of this element, and then depending on the enemy type, you'll either apply it quite quickly or you'll, start working towards their threshold. It is worth noting that some enemies are primed slightly easier, typically the trash mobs. Meanwhile, stronger or shielded enemies take much longer. In fact, if an enemy has a shield, you will typically need to drop the shield first before you can prime it. And of course, some of the bigger enemies, like the Arekkz, they take a lot more, so you might not be able to prime it on your own. You might have to work as a team and all combine your elements to gradually build up that threshold. It's also worth noting that upon triggering a combo, an enemy will then need to be reprimed, so only one person can combo a single enemy. So for example, if you're playing in a squad of 4 and an enemy's primed, you couldn't then have, say, the Ranger go in and detonate, followed by the Interceptor detonating, because that would kind of be broken. So essentially, whoever detonates first is the one that gets the effect. So if you wanted to, say, take advantage of the Ranger's single target damage on like a boss, then you would probably communicate and say prime the enemy and be like, yo Ranger, it's ready to detonate, and he would then fire his missile, do the high damage. You get the idea. So there's a lot of value in these. They're definitely something you want to take full advantage of because they're really cool. They're really satisfying when you land them, especially when you actually start setting your builds up specifically to combo. You communicate with your team, or even if you set it up on your own. Like a couple of my favorite combos are with the Interceptor. If you have the Venom Bomb and the Tempest Strike, you throw the grenade down, you apply the acid effect, and you just jump and do a hammer kick, and it detonates them. It's super satisfying. And probably my favourite build in the entire game is the Colossus with the Flamethrower and the Lightning Coil. You basically just set things on fire with the Flamethrower, activate the Lightning Coil, walk towards them, and you just combo to no end. So there's a lot of fun to be had. As mentioned, they're super satisfying to pull off, and they're also very effective in high-level content. So that, my friends, is everything you need to know about combos. Be sure to take that knowledge into the VIP demo, into the full game, and use that to your heart's content. If you have any questions, of course, drop them down below. And of course, keep it locked for plenty more Anthem content. Thanks very much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you want to check out some more awesome stuff from us here at Arekkz Gaming, then you should definitely try to catch 269 and Paradise Central streaming 6 days a week. You can find a link to the multi-stream in the description box down below. They play a wide range of games, and what's more, we also have the Endgame store. By watching their streams, you earn currency, and you can redeem that currency on the Endgame store for really cool prizes. Those can range from things like games, comics, and figures, all the way up to controllers, capture cards, and even consoles. So definitely drop by and become part of the community. Of course, if you enjoyed this video, then make sure you're subscribed and be sure to click on that little bell icon to turn on notifications so you don't miss our next upload. You can watch more videos by clicking on the options here. But once again, thanks very much for watching, take it easy, catch you next time, peace out.